Sir Kaelen, once a celebrated knight of the realm, now lives in disgrace in the border town of Rust Hollow. The chapter opens with him drinking alone in a tavern called the Broken Shield, where locals whisper about his fall from grace after abandoning his post during a crucial battle. When a royal messenger arrives bearing the king's seal, Kaelen initially refuses to acknowledge him. The messenger reveals that the young prince has fallen victim to a mysterious curse that turns his flesh to iron, slowly spreading from his fingertips. Only Kaelen's expertise in the Northern Territories makes him suitable for a dangerous mission into the Ironwoods to find the hermit rumoured to possess the cure. Despite his reluctance, the promise of restored honour and a substantial reward compels Kaelen to accept. At the royal palace, Kaelen witnesses firsthand the devastating effects of the curse on the young prince. The boy's right arm has completely transformed into rusted iron, the transformation spreading visibly by the hour. Court physicians work frantically but ineffectively around him. The Queen, desperate and distraught, personally implores Kaelen to save her son. While at court, Kaelen encounters his former commander, now the king's first knight, who makes it clear that Kaelen's disgrace has not been forgotten. As Kaelen prepares to depart, the curse accelerates unexpectedly, causing the prince to scream in agony as iron spreads across his chest. This catastrophic turn forces the king to offer Kaelen full redemption and restoration of his knighthood if he succeeds, adding urgent pressure to the mission. Tasked with assembling a team for the treacherous journey, Kaelen visits the royal archives to research the Ironwoods and the Hollow Sentinels. He learns that no expedition has returned intact in over 50 years. Kaelen decides he needs specialists who can survive the unique dangers. His first recruit is Lyra, a renowned tracker with unmatched knowledge of Northern Territories, whom he finds living as a recluse after her last expedition left her scarred. Next, he seeks out Thorn, a master blacksmith with a mysterious ability to manipulate metal, currently imprisoned for crafting illegal weapons. With the king's authority, Kaelen secures Thorn's release in exchange for his service. Kaelen debates whether to include Eloan, a scholar specializing in supernatural phenomena, despite her lack of combat experience. After witnessing her remarkable ability to decipher ancient texts about the Ironwoods, he reluctantly adds her to the team. Kaelen's team lacks one crucial member, someone who understands the mechanical nature of the Hollow Sentinels. His search leads him to Vex, a reclusive artificer living in a clockwork tower at the kingdom's edge. Vex initially refuses to join, revealing a past encounter with a Hollow Sentinel that left him with a mechanical arm replacement of his own design. He serves as both a warning and a mentor, explaining to Kaelen that the Sentinels aren't simply beasts, but intelligent hunters that learn from each encounter. Vex demonstrates specialized weapons he's designed to combat the iron threats and shares vital knowledge about the forest's dangers. After Kaelen reveals the full extent of the prince's condition, showing a sketch of the iron transformation, Vex recognizes the pattern of the curse and agrees to join, bringing his arsenal of specialized tools and weapons designed specifically for surviving the Ironwoods. As the team prepares for departure, Kaelen is haunted by memories of his disgrace. Through flashbacks, we learn that Kaelen abandoned his post not out of cowardice but to save a group of villagers from a surprise attack, directly disobeying orders that would have left the civilians to die. His choice saved dozens of lives but cost a strategic military position. The night before departure, Lyra confronts Kaelen about his past, having been present during that battle as a scout. She reveals that her brother was among those Kaelen saved, creating an unexpected bond between them. Meanwhile, Elowen discovers ancient texts suggesting the Ironwoods were once a normal forest, transformed by a curse similar to what now afflicts the prince. This revelation suggests their mission is not just about finding a hermit, but potentially the source of a curse that has existed for centuries. The chapter ends with a royal messenger arriving with news that the prince's condition has worsened, half his body now transformed, giving the team just 2 weeks before the transformation becomes irreversible. The 5-member team departs the capital at dawn, travelling north along increasingly neglected roads. Kaelen leads with grim determination, while tensions simmer between the others. Thorn remains distrustful of authority, frequently challenging Kaelen's decisions. Elowen attempts to bridge divides by sharing her research on the Iron Woods, though Vex dismisses much of it as academic fantasy. Lyra scouts ahead, returning with warnings of unusual tracks that suggest Hollow Sentinels have ventured beyond the forest's edge, something unprecedented. At a dilapidated inn near the border, they encounter Morden, a grizzled hunter who survived a brief expedition into the Iron Woods decades ago. Missing both legs, replaced with crude iron prosthetics, Morden warns them that the forest claims a piece of all who enter. He offers to guide them to the forest's edge in exchange for Vex examining his failing prosthetics. Kaelen agrees, though Thorn suspects Morden has ulterior motives. That night, Elowen discovers Morden's journal, which contains detailed sketches of the hermit they seek, revealing that their target is a woman known as the Iron Weaver, who may be responsible for creating the Hollow Sentinels rather than merely surviving among them. Guided by Morden, the team reaches the boundary of the Iron Woods, where normal trees gradually transform into twisted metal formations. Vex establishes a base camp and begins training the others to use his specialized equipment, iron-piercing crossbow bolts for Lyra, resonating hammers for Thorn that can shatter metal with precise strikes, and protective gear lined with special alloys. Elowen struggles with the physical training, but demonstrates unexpected value when she identifies toxic metal spores that could poison the team if inhaled. Kaelen practices combat techniques specifically designed for fighting the Hollow Sentinels, based on Vex's experience. Tensions escalate when Thorn accuses Kaelen of leading them to their deaths for personal redemption. Their argument is interrupted when Lyra returns from scouting with news that she spotted movement within the forest edge. Something is watching them. That night, Morden attempts to steal Vex's equipment but is caught by Kaelen. Before they can interrogate him, a lone Hollow Sentinel attacks the camp. The mechanical wolf-like creature moves with unnatural speed, its body a patchwork of rusted metal and what appears to be transformed flesh. The team barely fends it off, with Thorn saving Elowen's life at the cost of a deep gash from the creature's iron claws. As the Sentinel retreats, Morden flees into the night. Examining Thorn's wound, Vex notices tiny metal flakes embedded in the flesh, the first sign that the forest's curse might be contagious. The team enters the Iron Woods, where normal vegetation gives way entirely to metal flora. Iron trees creak in the wind, their razor-sharp leaves creating a constant, haunting whisper. Vex uses special tools to mark their path as compass needles spin wildly among the magnetic disturbances. Thorn's wound begins to show signs of metallic infection, with thin veins of iron spreading from the gash. Eloan applies a poultice based on her research, temporarily halting the spread. As they venture deeper, they discover bizarre iron formations that Eloan identifies as mimics, plants and animals that were transformed mid-motion, frozen eternally in metal. The group encounters their first major obstacle, a valley where the iron trees have grown so densely that their branches interlock, creating a nearly impenetrable barrier of metal thorns. Lyra discovers a narrow path that might serve as a passage, but as they navigate the tight space, they trigger a defensive mechanism. The metal thorns contract around them like a trap. Vex recognizes it as an evolved defense of the forest itself. Trapped and being slowly crushed, the team works together for the first time. Thorn uses his strength and metal manipulation abilities to hold the thorns back, while Vex identifies the mechanism's weak point. Kaelen makes a dangerous leap to sever a central nerve of the trap, nearly impaling himself in the process. As they escape the collapsing passage, they hear the distant howling of multiple Hollow Sentinels, drawn by the disturbance. The chapter ends with the sobering realization that the forest itself is a living entity, actively hostile to intruders. Following a map fragment found in Morden's abandoned belongings, the team discovers a massive clearing dominated by what appears to be a cathedral made entirely of twisted iron. The structure wasn't built but grew this way, its stained glass windows made of thin, colourful metal sheets that create eerie patterns of light inside. Eloan recognizes symbols etched into the walls that match ancient texts, describing worship of the Iron Heart, a deity or force believed to be the source of the forest's transformation. Inside, they find evidence of previous expeditions, equipment, weapons, and eventually, remains, human bones partially fused with metal. Vex discovers mechanical components that appear to be prototypes of the Hollow Sentinels, suggesting this place was where they were first created. While exploring the cathedral's depths, Lyra finds a hidden chamber containing journals written by the hermit they seek. The records reveal that the Iron Weaver was once the royal court's alchemist who fled after an experiment gone wrong, the same experiment that created the Iron Woods centuries ago. More disturbing, the journals suggest that the curse affecting the prince is not random but targeted. Revenge against the royal family who exiled her. As they prepare to leave with this crucial information, the team is separated when the cathedral's floor collapses. Kaelen and Eloan fall into a lower chamber filled with dormant Hollow Sentinels, dozens of the mechanical beasts in various stages of completion. Their presence triggers the creature's awakening sequence, forcing a desperate escape through narrow tunnels while mechanical howls echo behind them. Separated from Kaelen and Eloan, the remaining team members, Thorn, Vex, and Lyra, search desperately for their companions. Thorn's condition worsens, with iron now visibly spreading up his arm, causing him intense pain that he struggles to hide. Vex attempts a tracking device to locate the others, but discovers that something in the forest is interfering with his equipment, almost intelligently. Meanwhile, Kaelen and Eloan navigate through the cathedral's lower levels, discovering evidence that the Iron Weaver has been systematically luring expeditions into the forest to experiment on them. Eloan's scholarly knowledge proves invaluable as she deciphers the hermit's notes, learning that the transformation process can be reversed if caught early enough. When Kaelen reveals the depth of his guilt over his past disgrace, Eloan shares her own secret, her interest in the Iron Woods stems from her younger brother's disappearance during an expedition years ago. Their growing bond is tested when they encounter a horrifying sight: a half-transformed human, part flesh and part machine, who appears to be one of the hermit's failed experiments. The creature attacks, forcing Kaelen to make the brutal choice to end its suffering. Before dying, the creature whispers coordinates that could lead to the Iron Weaver's hideout. Elsewhere, tensions between Thorn and Vex erupt into open conflict when Vex suggests amputating Thorn's infected arm. Lyra intervenes, revealing that her tracking skills have located a path that should reunite them with the others. As a violent storm of metallic rain begins to fall, the three take shelter in a cave, only to discover they've entered the den of a Hollow Sentinel pack. The chapter ends with the team divided, each group facing immediate peril, and the realization that the forest is herding them toward its center, where something massive awaits. After a harrowing escape from the Sentinel den that leaves Vex with a damaged mechanical arm, Lyra leads her group toward the coordinates Kaelen and Elowen are also approaching. The two groups reunite at the edge of a vast clearing dominated by an enormous iron tree with a hollow trunk. Inside, they finally encounter the Iron Weaver, not the ancient crone they expected, but a middle-aged woman with streaks of metal fused to her skin, living within a workshop filled with alchemical equipment and mechanical parts. She greets them by name, revealing she's been watching their progress through the eyes of the Sentinels. The Iron Weaver confirms she placed the curse on the prince as revenge against the royal family who exiled her predecessor centuries ago. In a shocking revelation, she explains that the Iron Woods were created not by accident, but deliberately, an attempt to create a sanctuary where humans could survive by becoming part metal, immune to disease and aging. The original experiment was deemed heretical, its creator executed, but not before passing her knowledge to an apprentice who continued the work in exile. For generations, each Iron Weaver has refined the process, with the current one nearly perfecting the controlled transformation. She offers the team a choice. She will cure the prince if one of them voluntarily undergoes the transformation process to become her apprentice, continuing the work. When the team hesitates, she reveals her true power by commanding every metal object in the room to vibrate in unison, including the iron spreading through Thorn's body, causing him excruciating pain. Kaelen realizes with horror that the Iron Weaver doesn't just control metal, she's become something beyond human, with the entire forest functioning as an extension of her consciousness. The team retreats to a safe distance to consider the Iron Weaver's ultimatum. Thorn, in agony from the advancing metal in his arm, argues they should accept her offer, with him as the sacrifice. Vex vehemently disagrees, believing they can develop a cure using the Iron Weaver's notes, which Elowen managed to secretly copy before their escape. Kaelen is torn between his duty to the prince and his responsibility to his team. The debate becomes moot when a royal contingent unexpectedly arrives at the forest's edge, led by the king's first knight, Kaelen's former commander. Lyra, scouting the perimeter, returns with news that the soldiers are cutting their way into the forest with specialized equipment. Kaelen realizes they weren't sent as reinforcements, but to ensure the mission succeeds at any cost, including eliminating Kaelen's team if they fail. When Kaelen attempts to make contact, the first knight reveals their new orders: kill the Iron Weaver and bring back her research. Kaelen protests that this won't save the prince, but the knight discloses that the prince died 3 days ago. The mission now is about vengeance and acquiring the power of metal transformation for military use. This devastating news fractures the team. Thorn, seeing no hope for his cure, leaves to surrender himself to the Iron Weaver. Vex pursues him, determined to prevent another experiment. Lyra sides with Kaelen, who insists they must still try to obtain a cure that might help others. Elowen makes the heartbreaking revelation that one of the failed experiments they saw in the cathedral had her brother's pendant, confirming his fate. As the royal forces begin a systematic burning of the metal forest using alchemical fire that melts even iron, the iron woods respond with unprecedented fury. The ground trembles as massive roots of metal erupt, impaling several soldiers. The Hollow Sentinels emerge in overwhelming numbers, no longer hunting but waging war. Caught between the advancing royal forces and the forest's defenders, Kaelen's fractured team faces their darkest hour. With the forest in chaos, Kaelen pursues Thorn, determined to prevent him from sacrificing himself. He finds Thorn and Vex in bitter combat at the Iron Weaver's sanctuary, with Vex trying to restrain the larger man. The Iron Weaver watches their struggle with clinical interest, revealing that the transformation process requires a willing subject. Coercion results in the mindless feral state of failed experiments. Kaelen attempts to reason with Thorn, offering to help find another solution, but Thorn's condition has deteriorated rapidly, the metal now covering most of his upper body. In a moment of clarity, Thorn explains that he's not sacrificing himself, but taking the only chance he has to survive. Meanwhile, Lyra and Elowen are captured by the royal forces. The first knight interrogates them about the Iron Weaver's location, threatening execution for treason. Elowen, displaying unexpected courage, uses her knowledge of the forest to mislead them. Buying time by claiming the cure requires a complex ritual. Lyra manages to escape during an attack by Hollow Sentinels, but Elowen remains captive, using her position to sabotage the soldiers' alchemical weapons from within. Back at the sanctuary, the Iron Weaver begins Thorn's transformation process as Kaelen and Vex watch helplessly. The procedure reveals the true horror of the metamorphosis. Thorn's screams echo as metal flows through his veins like liquid mercury. Halfway through, the sanctuary is breached by royal forces. In the ensuing chaos, the transformation equipment is damaged, leaving Thorn suspended between states, part human, part metal, and in excruciating pain. The Iron Weaver is mortally wounded by the first knight's specialized weapon, designed to disrupt her connection to the forest. With her dying breath, she transfers her power to Thorn, completing his transformation in an uncontrolled surge that fills the sanctuary with blinding light. When vision returns, Thorn stands transformed, his body a perfect fusion of flesh and living metal. Neither human nor machine, but something new. The chapter ends with Thorn looking at his hands in wonder and horror as he feels his consciousness expanding to connect with every metal element in the forest. In the aftermath of the Iron Weaver's death, Kaelen finds himself alone with Thorn, who struggles to control his new abilities. The forest responds chaotically to Thorn's emotional state, with metal trees bending and Hollow Sentinels appearing confused, awaiting commands that Thorn doesn't know how to give. Vex was captured during the attack, taken for interrogation about his mechanical innovations. As Thorn gradually gains control, he reveals to Kaelen that he can sense everything in the forest, including Lyra hiding from royal patrols and Elowen being marched toward an extraction point. More disturbingly, he can feel the forest's pain as the soldiers continue to burn, and cut their way through it. Thorn explains that the Iron Weaver wasn't evil. She was trying to create a new form of life that could survive in a world increasingly hostile to purely organic beings. The forest was her laboratory, but also a sanctuary for those willing to transform. Meanwhile, Elowen uses her captivity to learn the true reason for the royal family's hatred of the Iron Weaver. Centuries ago, the first Iron Weaver offered transformation to the dying queen, an act considered heretical. The transformation worked but created a schism in the royal line between those who embraced the new form and those who considered it an abomination. The current royal family descends from those who rejected transformation, and they've been systematically erasing the existence of their metal-infused relatives. Alone in the depths of the forest, Kaelen confronts his deepest fears and failures. He realizes that his disgrace, choosing to save innocent lives over following orders, wasn't a failure, but the moment he most truly embodied the knightly virtues he aspired to. This epiphany gives him clarity about their current situation. The forest isn't their enemy, nor is Thorn, despite his transformation. The true threat comes from those who would exploit this power for dominance. Kaelen proposes a daring plan to Thorn. Instead of fighting the royal forces directly, they will use the forest itself to capture the first knight and force a negotiation. Kaelen and Thorn implement their plan to capture the first knight. Using Thorn's new connection to the forest, they manipulate the metal trees to create false paths, leading the royal forces into separated groups. Lyra rejoins them, bringing crucial intelligence about the soldiers' movements and equipment. Together, they orchestrate a precise ambush, with Hollow Sentinels herding specific targets while avoiding bloodshed where possible. When they finally confront the first knight, he reveals his own secret. Beneath his armor, his body shows signs of the same metal transformation that afflicted the prince. He was sent not just to retrieve a cure, but because he is already infected, having been injured by a royal heirloom made from metal taken from the Ironwoods generations ago. This revelation suggests the curse has been slowly working through the royal line for centuries. The first knight offers Kaelen a deal: help him complete his transformation successfully, and he'll order his forces to withdraw. Kaelen is suspicious but sees an opportunity. Meanwhile, Vex escapes his captors during the confusion, using his mechanical knowledge to disable their weapons. He finds Elowen, and together they retrieve the Iron Weaver's research journals, which contain the complete transformation process and potential cures for those in early stages. Thorn, growing more comfortable with his new abilities, demonstrates that he can control the spread of metal in living tissue, temporarily halting the first knight's transformation to prove his capabilities. The chapter culminates with a tense standoff as Kaelen's reunited team confronts the first knight and his remaining forces. Thorn, now fully embracing his role as the new Iron Weaver, offers a third option beyond fighting or fleeing: coexistence. He proposes that the Ironwoods become a recognized sovereign territory where those who choose transformation can live without persecution, while offering controlled, partial transformations to treat injuries and illnesses in the kingdom. The first knight, facing his own mortality, must decide whether to accept this unprecedented offer or continue a battle he's unlikely to win against the fully awakened power of the forest. The first knight initially appears to accept Thorn's offer, ordering his men to stand down. However, this proves to be a deception. Having secretly sent for reinforcements days earlier, The night stalls until the royal army's elite Ash Guard arrives, soldiers equipped with specialized gear designed to combat metal creatures. Their arrival triggers a full-scale assault on the Iron Woods. Thorn, still mastering his powers, struggles to coordinate the forest's defenses against this organized attack. Kaelen takes command of the Hollow Sentinels, using his military experience to organize them into effective fighting units rather than solitary hunters. Vex and Elowen work frantically to complete a device based on the Iron Weaver's research, a resonator that could disrupt the soldiers' anti-metal weapons. Lyra uses her knowledge of the forest to lead groups of soldiers into natural traps. The battle reaches a critical point when the Ashguard deploys their secret weapon, alchemical bombs that transform metal into brittle ash on contact. Entire sections of the forest begin to crumble, causing Thorn excruciating pain as parts of his extended consciousness are destroyed. In desperation, Thorn attempts a dangerous maneuver, extending his transformation power to create new metal growths at an accelerated rate. The forest responds with unprecedented growth, with iron trees erupting from the ground and entangling the invaders. However, the effort nearly kills Thorn, as the massive expenditure of energy leaves him vulnerable. The First Knight seizes this opportunity to strike at Thorn directly, revealing a blade made from a special alloy that can sever the connection between Thorn and the forest. Kaelen intercepts the attack, engaging his former commander in single combat amidst the chaos of battle. Their duel becomes the centerpiece of the larger conflict, with each man representing opposing philosophies about humanity's relationship with transformation and power. Kaelen and the First Knight's duel intensifies, with both men drawing on years of shared training. The Knight reveals his bitterness. He was the one who recommended Kaelen for knighthood years ago, seeing him as a protégé, making Kaelen's subsequent betrayal personal. As they fight, Kaelen realizes the Knight's transformation is more advanced than he admitted. Beneath his armor, half his body has already converted to living metal. The Knight's fighting style becomes increasingly inhuman, with metal extensions erupting from his arms to form weapons. Meanwhile, Vex completes the resonator device with Elowen's help, but activating it requires placing it at the Iron Cathedral, the focal point of the forest's power. Lyra volunteers for the dangerous mission, navigating through the battlefield with the device. Thorn, recovering from his overexertion, establishes a deeper connection with the forest, discovering that he can access the memories of previous Iron Weavers stored within the metal itself. This revelation provides him with greater control and understanding of his abilities. He learns that the transformation was never meant to be a curse but a gift, a way for humanity to evolve beyond their fragile flesh. The battle reaches its climax when the First Knight, gaining the upper hand against the exhausted Kaelen, prepares a killing blow. At the last moment, Thorn intervenes not physically, but by establishing a mental connection with the Knight through the metal in his body. This connection forces the Knight to experience the memories and intentions of the Iron Weavers, showing him the true purpose of the transformation. Simultaneously, Lyra reaches the cathedral and activates the resonator, sending a wave of energy through the forest that disrupts the Ashguard's weapons but also stabilizes the transformative energy of the forest itself. The pulse momentarily connects all metal in the area, including the partially transformed Knight, Thorn, and the Hollow Sentinels, creating a shared consciousness. This moment of unity reveals the potential harmony between human and metal, flesh, and iron. When the effect subsides, the Knight drops his weapon, the fight gone from him as he finally understands what the transformation truly offers. In the battle's aftermath, an unexpected development occurs. The First Knight's transformation accelerates rapidly, threatening to consume him completely without the controlled process the Iron Weaver developed. Thorn attempts to stabilize him, but lacks the experience to halt the runaway reaction. Vex theorizes that they need to reach the true center of the Iron Woods, the legendary iron heart that powers the entire forest, to save the knight and fully establish Thorn's control. The team journeys to the forest's center, with Kaelen carrying the weakening knight. Along the way, they encounter increasingly strange metal formations, trees that shift positions when not observed, clearings where gravity seems altered, and hollow sentinels that appear to be evolving new forms. Elowen translates ancient markers that suggest the Iron Heart isn't merely the power source of the forest, but a meteorite of unknown origin that fell centuries ago, containing a metal not found on Earth. When they finally reach the heart, a massive pulsing meteorite in a cathedral-like chamber deep underground, they discover they aren't alone. Morden, the guide who abandoned them earlier, has reached it first, partially transformed and mentally unstable. He reveals he's been working for a third faction, metal-transformed humans who have been living in secret for generations, descendants of the original successful transformations. These Ironborn seek to use the heart to trigger mass transformation across the kingdom. As Thorn approaches the heart to connect with it, Morden attacks, triggering a cave-in that separates the team. Kaelen and the dying First Knight are trapped with Morden, while the others are cut off with Thorn and the heart. In a surprising twist, the First Knight uses the last of his strength to hold off Morden, urging Kaelen to help Thorn. His sacrifice gives Kaelen time to clear a path to rejoin the others. Thorn makes contact with the Iron Heart, experiencing a flood of information from both the meteorite and generations of Iron Weavers. The revelation is staggering. The meteorite is sentient in its own alien way, seeking symbiosis with Earth life forms. The transformations are its attempt to communicate and merge with humanity. With this understanding, Thorn is able to fully claim his role as the new Iron Weaver, stabilizing the forest and halting the knight's painful transformation, though too late to save his life. With the battle over and the Iron Heart stabilized under Thorn's guidance, the team faces the challenge of establishing peace. The remaining royal forces have withdrawn to the forest's edge, awaiting orders following the First Knight's death. Kaelen, carrying the knight's sword and insignia, meets with the Ashguard commander to negotiate. Using the knight's authority and evidence of the curse's true nature, he secures a temporary truce. Meanwhile, Thorn works to master his new abilities, repairing damage to the forest and helping the Hollow Sentinels evolve beyond their predatory programming. He discovers he can refine the transformation process, potentially offering controlled, partial transformations that enhance human capabilities without full conversion. Vex, fascinated by this possibility, volunteers to receive a limited transformation of his damaged arm, becoming the first successful recipient of Thorn's improved process. Elowen organizes the Iron Weaver's research, discovering cures for early-stage transformations that could have saved the prince had they found them in time. This knowledge weighs heavily on her, though Kaelen assures her that their journey will save countless others in the future. Lyra, having found purpose with the team, decides to remain in the Iron Woods as its protector and guide for those seeking Thorn's help. The team must also address the Ironborn revealed by Morden. After initial tension, they reach an understanding. The Ironborn will no longer operate in secrecy, instead helping Thorn establish the Iron Woods as a haven for those who choose transformation. A delegation from the royal court arrives, including the grieving queen. Though initially hostile, she is moved when presented with the First Knight's final written testimony, explaining the truth about the forest and the transformation. In a private moment, she reveals to Kaelen that part of her wishes they had found the cure in time, while another part fears what her son might have become, neither fully human nor fully metal, but something new and unknown. The chapter ends with the establishment of a formal treaty. The Iron Woods will be recognised as a sovereign territory under Thorn's stewardship, with Kaelen serving as ambassador between the forest and the kingdom. 3 months after the battle, Kaelen returns to the capital to formalise the treaty between the kingdom and the Iron Woods. The city has changed in his absence. Rumours of the metal transformation have spread, creating both fear and fascination. Some citizens with incurable conditions or injuries have begun making pilgrimages to the forest, seeking Thorn's help, while others call for the woods to be burned to the ground. The royal court remains divided, with conservative factions opposing any alliance with the metal abominations. Kaelen, now bearing a small, controlled metal enhancement on his sword arm, a gift from Thorn that increases his strength and reflexes, faces discrimination and whispers as he moves through the palace. The Queen, having accepted the death of her son, has become an unexpected ally, seeing the medical potential in controlled transformation. During the treaty ceremony, a radical faction attempts an assassination, targeting both Kaelen and the Queen with weapons designed to disrupt metal. The attack fails but reveals the depth of fear surrounding transformation. In the aftermath, Kaelen realises that his place is no longer in the capital, but in the borderlands between the kingdom and the Iron Woods, where he can help those seeking transformation and protect both realms from those who would reignite conflict. Before leaving the capital, he visits his old village where he was once disgraced for abandoning his post. He finds that the villagers he saved have kept his story alive, and many welcome him as a hero rather than a traitor. This reconciliation with his past gives Kaelen the closure he needs. The chapter ends with Kaelen's return journey to the Iron Woods, where he finds dramatic changes. Under Thorn's influence, the forest has evolved into a more harmonious ecosystem, with areas of living metal existing alongside patches of returning organic plant life. The Hollow Sentinels now serve as guardians rather than hunters, protecting travellers on designated safe paths. At the forest's heart, Thorn has established a sanctuary where Vex and Elowen work together, studying the symbiotic relationship between metal and flesh, while Lyra trains a new generation of guides. As Kaelen crosses the threshold from the kingdom into the Iron Woods, he reflects that he has finally found where he belongs, not fully in either world, but in the boundary between them, helping others navigate the path between humanity's past and its possible future. 3 months after the battle, Kaelen returns to the capital to formalise the treaty between the kingdom and the Iron Woods. The city has changed in his absence. Rumours of the metal transformation have spread, creating both fear and fascination. Some citizens with incurable conditions or injuries have begun making pilgrimages to the forest seeking Thorn's help, while others call for the woods to be burned to the ground. The royal court remains divided, with conservative factions opposing any alliance with the metal abominations. Kaelen, now bearing a small controlled metal enhancement on his sword arm, a gift from Thorn that increases his strength and reflexes, faces discrimination and whispers as he moves through the palace. The Queen, having accepted the death of her son, has become an unexpected ally, seeing the medical potential in controlled transformation. During the treaty ceremony, a radical faction attempts an assassination, targeting both Kaelen and the Queen with weapons designed to disrupt metal. The attack fails but reveals the depth of fear surrounding transformation. In the aftermath, Kaelen realizes that his place is no longer in the capital, but in the borderlands between the kingdom and the Iron Woods, where he can help those seeking transformation and protect both realms from those who would reignite conflict. Before leaving the capital, he visits his old village where he was once disgraced for abandoning his post. He finds that the villagers he saved have kept his story alive, and many welcome him as a hero rather than a traitor. This reconciliation with his past gives Kaelen the closure he needs. The chapter ends with Kaelen's return journey to the Iron Woods, where he finds dramatic changes. Under Thorn's influence, the forest has evolved into a more harmonious ecosystem, with areas of living metal existing alongside patches of returning organic plant life. The Hollow Sentinels now serve as guardians rather than hunters, protecting travellers on designated safe paths. At the forest's heart, Thorn has established a sanctuary where Vex and Elowen work together, studying the symbiotic relationship between metal and flesh, while Lyra trains a new generation of guides. As Kaelen crosses the threshold from the kingdom into the Iron Woods, he reflects that he has finally found where he belongs, not fully in either world, but in the boundary between them, helping others navigate the path between humanity's past and its possible future. 1 year after the treaty, the Iron Woods have become a place of pilgrimage and controversy. Kaelen, now officially the ambassador of the boundary, maintains outposts along the forest's edge where he evaluates those seeking transformation. He works closely with Lyra to ensure only those with genuine need and understanding are guided to Thorn. The forest itself continues to evolve under Thorn's influence, developing a seasonal cycle previously unknown. During bloom season, the metal trees produce delicate filigree structures that release beneficial metal spores, enhancing the soil rather than poisoning it. Vex has established a school of metal craft, teaching techniques that blend traditional blacksmithing with the living metal of the forest. His students include both fully human apprentices and partially transformed individuals, creating innovations that are beginning to spread throughout the kingdom. Elowen's research has gained recognition, with scholars from the capital cautiously visiting her laboratory built within a transformed iron tree. Her most significant discovery is that controlled exposure to refined metal from the iron heart can cure several previously untreatable conditions without full transformation. This medical breakthrough has begun to change attitudes toward the forest. The Ironborn have integrated with Thorn's community, though some factions remain secretive, distrustful of the new openness. Tensions rise when a group of Ironborn extremists attempt to steal concentrated essence from the Iron Heart, planning to release it in the capital to force mass transformation. Kaelen and Lyra track them through the forest, culminating in a confrontation where Kaelen must use both his enhanced abilities and his diplomatic skills to prevent bloodshed. The incident highlights the ongoing challenges of balancing the two worlds. The chapter ends with a ceremony marking the forest's first full cycle under Thorn's guidance. As representatives from both the kingdom and the Ironborn gather, Thorn demonstrates his mastery by creating a spectacular display. The metal trees form a canopy that shifts and flows like liquid silver, while the ground beneath pulses with warm light from the iron heart deep below. Even the most skeptical visitors are moved by the beauty of this metal garden, suggesting that acceptance, if not embrace, of this new reality is possible. 5 years after Kaelen first entered the Iron Woods, he stands at the newly constructed Gate of Two Natures, an elaborate arch marking the official boundary between the kingdom and the sovereign territory of the Iron Woods. The gate itself is a marvel of Vex's design, featuring metal that responds to the intentions of those who pass through it, welcoming the peaceful while warning Kaelen of potential threats. Kaelen's role has evolved. He now leads a diverse council that includes representatives from the kingdom, the Ironborn, and those who've chosen partial transformation. His own metal enhancement remains minimal, just his sword arm and a small plate over his heart that once stopped an assassin's blade. A deliberate choice to remain primarily human while understanding both worlds. Thorn has transformed dramatically, his body now a perfect blend of flesh and living metal that can shift form as needed. As the new Iron Weaver, he rarely leaves the heart of the forest, but has created a network of resonance points that allow him to project his consciousness throughout his domain. His most remarkable achievement has been establishing harmony between the forest and its surroundings, with the border now featuring a gradual transition rather than a stark division. Elowen has become the foremost scholar of transformation science, having written definitive texts that are cautiously studied even in the kingdom's conservative universities. Her controlled medical applications of the Iron Heart's essence have saved thousands of lives, including the Queen's after an assassination attempt. Vex's mechanical innovations, enhanced by living metal components, have revolutionized everything from agriculture to architecture in both realms. His prosthetics, which function nearly identically to natural limbs, are his most sought-after creation. Lyra, aging but still formidable, has trained a network of guides who ensure safe passage through the ever-changing paths of the forest. She maintains the delicate balance between welcoming visitors and protecting the forest's secrets. In a private moment after a council meeting, the 5 original companions gather at the Iron Cathedral, now transformed into a living repository of their shared history. They reflect on their journey and the changes they've witnessed, how what began as a desperate mission to save a cursed prince became the foundation of a new relationship between humanity and transformation. Kaelen observes that the true curse was never the metal itself, but fear of change and the unknown. As they share memories and plans for the future, a young messenger arrives with news from the capital. The Queen is abdicating, and her chosen successor is a distant cousin who bears the early signs of natural metal affinity, the first monarch to embrace rather than fear transformation. The message concludes with a formal invitation for all 5 of them to attend the coronation, a public acknowledgement of their role in bridging 2 worlds. The story ends as they step outside the cathedral to see both human visitors and Hollow Sentinels peacefully coexisting on the paths below, while overhead the metal leaves catch the sunset and scatter it in prismatic patterns, iron and light intertwined, much like the future they have helped to forge.